I walked into the kitchen and heard my wife whisper to her mom, "He's just a temporary husband. Once I'm financially stable, I'll dump him." Her mom laughed. "Just make sure he pays for everything first." I pretended not to hear, but this morning my phone was blowing up with missed calls, and I noticed something weird. Hey everyone, before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. Last month, my wife Vanessa started taking these hushed phone calls from her mom, like she'd literally walk out of the room when her mom called. Not super suspicious on its own, right? We all need privacy sometimes, but after 3 years of marriage, this was definitely new behavior. I didn't think much of it until last Tuesday. I got home early from work because my team's morning meeting got canceled. NBD. Just meant I could actually have lunch at home for once instead of a sad desk salad. I was about to announce my presence when I heard Vanessa and her mom Fiona in the kitchen. They were talking in those half-whisper voices people use when they're saying something they shouldn't. And then I heard it. Vanessa laughed and said something about me being her temporary husband, and how once she was financially stable, she'd move on. Her mom, my mother-in-law, who I've fixed countless computer problems for, and who always hugs me too long at family gatherings, actually laughed and told her to make sure he pays for everything first. I just froze. Like my brain couldn't process what I was hearing. This was my wife, the person I've been supporting for 3 years while she figured out her career path, the woman I bought a house with, the one I was planning to start a family with next year. And yes, I realize how naive that sounds. Trust me, I've been kicking myself pretty hard about it. I don't know how I kept it together, but somehow I quietly backed out the front door, closed it normally, then made a bunch of noise coming in again. By the time I walked into the kitchen, they were talking about some reality show like nothing happened. The weird thing? I didn't feel like screaming or throwing things. Instead, this eerie calm came over me. I smiled, kissed Vanessa on the cheek, and asked if they wanted me to order takeout. Like I hadn't just heard my entire future get shredded. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying conversations in my head, and suddenly, so many things made sense. The constant hints about how I should ask for a raise, the jokes about how lucky she was to find someone financially responsible, the way she always pushed me to pay for her mom's dinner when we went out. So I started looking closer at our finances the next day. We have separate accounts, her idea, ironically enough, but I handle most of the bills. What I found was eye-opening. Vanessa had been making minimum payments on 3 credit cards I didn't know about. The combined balance? Over $122,000. And the purchases weren't necessities. Designer bags, expensive skincare, weekend trips with her friends that she told me were mostly paid for by Megan. They weren't. For 3 days I said nothing. I just watched her, the way she casually mentioned needing my help with her car payment just this month, how she kept bringing up this amazing business opportunity she wanted to invest in, which would require about $5,000 of startup capital. I started noticing how she'd check my work schedule, looking disappointed when I said I'd be home early. The mysterious texts she'd get that made her smile in a way she never did with me anymore. I'm not stupid. I knew I had options. I could confront her, scream, throw her stuff on the lawn, all that dramatic movie stuff. But something inside me had shifted. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was chess, not checkers. So when she brought up her business idea again over dinner, I surprised her by saying I thought it was a great plan. I told her I'd been thinking about our future a lot lately, true, and wanted to support her dreams, technically true. I suggested she could even quit her part-time job to focus on it. Her face lit up, not with love, not with gratitude, with victory. She thought she'd won. What she doesn't know is that I've been documenting everything. Every conversation, every hidden purchase, every text to her mom about their plans for my money. I've moved most of my savings to an account she doesn't know about. I've consulted with a lawyer friend off the books, just grabbing beers, about my options. I've started recording our conversations. My state has one-party consent laws. I checked. I'm gathering evidence of financial deception, and I'm playing the long game. Yesterday, she asked if we could add her name to my investment accounts so she could learn more about finance. I smiled and said we'd look into it next week. She has no idea what's coming. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even sad. I'm just determined. She thinks I'm a stepping stone, a temporary husband to use and discard. But here's the thing about me that Vanessa clearly missed. I've always been patient. I've always been strategic, and I absolutely hate being taken advantage of. So this morning, when my phone started blowing up with missed calls from both Vanessa and Fiona while I was in a meeting, actually talking to a divorce lawyer, I didn't panic. I texted back that everything was fine, just busy at work, and that I was excited to discuss her business plan tonight. I wasn't going to be her temporary husband. She was going to be my temporary wife, and she'd regret ever underestimating me. Update. So you know that feeling when something inside you just shifts? Like one day you're cruising through life thinking everything's fine, and the next you're playing 4D chess with your own marriage? Yeah, that was me, after the kitchen incident. The morning after I heard Vanessa and her mom's little chat, I woke up extra early and made her favorite breakfast. Blueberry pancakes with that fancy maple syrup she likes, the one that costs like 3 times more than regular syrup for basically no reason. When she stumbled into the kitchen all sleepy-eyed, she looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "What's all this for?" she asked, suspicious. I just shrugged and said something about wanting to do something nice. The look on her face was priceless, a mix of confusion and that guilty expression people get when they know they don't deserve something. This became my new normal, being the perfect freaking husband while documenting everything. My buddy Charles, who happens to be a lawyer, nearly spit out his beer when I told him what I'd overheard. We were at this dive sports bar where nobody we knew would show up. The Knicks were getting destroyed on the screen above us, but I barely noticed. "Dude, you need to protect yourself like yesterday," he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "And whatever you do, don't confront her yet." Charles helped me come up with what he called the documentation strategy. Basically, I needed receipts, lots of them. And not just the kind from Vanessa's shopping spree, though those were definitely part of it. So I started a folder in my Google Drive called Fantasy Basketball League 2025. It was actually filled with screenshots, recordings. Turns out Washington is a one-party consent state for recording convos, thanks Charles, and notes about everything suspicious. The real game changer happened when Vanessa started talking about quitting her job to pursue her passion of starting an online boutique. Normally, I would have been like, pump the brakes, but new perfect husband Justin was all for it. "Babe, you should totally do it. I believe in you," I told her, with all the enthusiasm of a golden retriever. I even offered to help set up her website. What she didn't know was that every investment I made into her business was carefully documented with contracts that Charles helped draft, contracts that looked standard but actually protected my assets. She signed them all without reading past the first paragraph. Classic Vanessa. The red flags I'd been ignoring started showing up everywhere, like how she'd never let me see her phone, always turning it face down when I walked into the room. Or how she'd suddenly need to run errands at weird times, coming back with no shopping bags but somehow having spent money. I'm not gonna lie, some days were hard. Like when we'd be watching Netflix and she'd snuggle up next to me, and for a split second I'd forget that our whole marriage was basically a scam. Those moments sucked the most. Then came the anniversary gift that kept on giving. For our 4th anniversary, I surprised her with a shared investment account where I'd supposedly be putting half my income. Her eyes literally lit up like it was Christmas morning. The paperwork she signed with a huge smile actually included her stating that she understood this was documentation of gift funds, not marital assets. Charles was an absolute wizard with the legal language. The real kicker? I installed one of those family tracking apps on our phones for safety after her car broke down. She thought it was sweet. I thought it was interesting how often her location showed her at some apartment complex across town when she was supposedly at yoga. A quick social media dive revealed the apartment belonged to a dude named Vincent, who worked at her old office. The same Vincent who kept liking all her Instagram posts at 2 a.m. I even encouraged her mom, Fiona, to visit more often. Yeah, I know, but every time she came over, those two would eventually forget I existed and start talking freely, especially after a few glasses of wine. My phone recording app got quite the workout during those visits. "He's so clueless," Fiona laughed one night when they thought I was in the garage. "You've got him wrapped around your finger." "Just a little longer, Mom," Vanessa replied. Once the boutique takes off, I can finally ditch the dad sneakers and cargo shorts lifestyle. For the record, I wore cargo shorts once, on a hike, 3 years ago, and she's never let me forget it. The final piece fell into place when Vanessa started planning this lavish vacation to Cancun for just the two of us. She wanted me to put it all on my credit card. I enthusiastically agreed and even suggested we invite her mom and a few friends to join us for part of the trip. "That's so thoughtful of you," she said, kissing me on the cheek while simultaneously texting someone. 3 guesses who. So here I am, watching her pack for a vacation we're supposed to leave for tomorrow, folding all her new bikinis and sundresses into a suitcase I paid for. She has no idea that while she's been planning this getaway, I've been planning something very different. My new apartment lease is signed. My important documents and irreplaceable items have slowly disappeared from the house over the last month. My lawyer has everything ready. Tonight, I'll tell her I need to work late to wrap things up before vacation. Instead, I'll be finalizing the last details with Charles. Tomorrow morning, when she's expecting us to head to the airport, she'll get a very different kind of surprise. She thinks I'm her temporary husband who exists to fund her lifestyle. Little does she know, she's my temporary wife, who's about to learn a permanent lesson about underestimating the clueless guy in dad sneaks. My phone's already blowing up with texts from Vanessa asking where I am. The vacation starts in less than 12 hours. She has no idea what's actually about to begin. Update 2. So you guys wanted an update on the whole temporary husband situation. Well, buckle up because things have been wild these past few weeks. Remember how I mentioned Vanessa's mom, Fiona, was always hanging around? I decided to lean into that discomfort. One night, while we were watching some random Netflix show, I casually suggested that her mom could just move in with us temporarily since she was spending so much time here anyway. You should have seen Vanessa's face light up. It was like I just handed her the keys to Fort Knox. "Are you sure? You've always said you value our privacy," she asked, trying and failing to hide her excitement. I shrugged like it was no big deal. "Your mom's important to you. And anyway, She can help with that business venture you're working on. Within a week, Fiona had moved into our guest room, bringing approximately 4,000 pairs of shoes and this weird collection of ceramic cats. The woman literally took over our downstairs bathroom and rearranged my kitchen cabinets. But I just smiled and nodded while secretly recording their late-night conversations when they thought I was asleep or working late. And boy, did they talk. One night I heard Fiona say, "Once he puts that investment property in your name, we're golden. He's such a pushover lately." Vanessa giggled and added, "I know. I thought he'd be harder to manipulate, but he's making this so easy." That recording went straight to my lawyer, BW. Speaking of the investment property, Vanessa had been dropping hints about this amazing opportunity in her hometown for weeks, so I pretended to get super excited about it and suggested putting it entirely in her name for tax purposes. She practically sprinted to get the paperwork started. Little did she know, I'd already had my lawyer friend Charles draft documents that looked legit but wouldn't actually transfer anything. The real coup was getting her to sign what she thought was property paperwork but was actually documentation acknowledging all the money she'd been siphoning from our accounts. Charles is a freaking genius. Meanwhile, Vincent, remember him, the coworker she was sleeping with, kept texting her constantly. My tracking app showed them meeting at this sketchy motel off Highway 39 at least twice a week. She'd always come home and jump in the shower right away, then be extra affectionate, as if that wasn't sus AF. So here's where my plan came together. I told Vanessa I'd received this huge bonus at work and wanted to celebrate with a special dinner. I made reservations at Bellini, that fancy Italian place downtown she's always wanted to try but complained was too expensive. I even suggested she invite her mom because she's practically family now and has been such a huge support for her business. Vanessa was practically floating for days, telling her friends about her amazing husband and the fancy celebration dinner. She even bought a new dress for the occasion, with my credit card. Naturally, the night of the dinner, I told her I'd meet them at the restaurant because I had to pick up a surprise. She and Fiona arrived first, all dressed up and already ordering champagne. When I walked in with Vincent, I said, "Look who I ran into in the parking lot," and clapped a very confused Vincent on the shoulder. The color drained from Vanessa's face so fast, I thought she might pass out. Fiona started coughing on her champagne. "Vincent, why don't you join us? After all, you're practically family too at this point." I've never seen someone look so uncomfortable as Vincent did sitting at that table while I cheerfully ordered appetizers for everyone. After the waiter left, I pulled out my phone and said, "So before we order main courses, I wanted to share my surprise." I connected my phone to a small Bluetooth speaker I'd brought along and hit play. There they were, all the recordings. Vanessa and Fiona discussing their temporary husband plan. Vanessa and Vincent making plans while I was supposedly out of town. Vanessa admitting to her friend on the phone that she never loved me, just needed financial stability. I followed this up by pulling out a folder with bank statements showing all the money she'd been transferring to her secret account, screenshots of text messages with Vincent, and finally, the divorce papers my lawyer had prepared. The real celebration tonight is me finally freeing myself from two of the most manipulative people I've ever met, I said, sliding the divorce papers across the table. "Oh, and Vincent, she's been lying to you too, buddy. She told you I was abusive and controlling. Check out these texts to her friend about how pathetically nice I am." You could hear a pin drop in that section of the restaurant. Then Vanessa started crying. Not sad tears, but those angry, frustrated crocodile tears she uses when she's not getting her way. Fiona started whisper shouting about how I couldn't do this to her daughter, and Vincent just sat there, looking like he wanted to dissolve into the floor. "The investment property papers you signed? They're actually documentation of financial fraud. The business loan you thought I was giving you? That was actually you acknowledging your debt to me. And that prenup clause about infidelity that you never read carefully? It means you get nothing." I stood up, dropped cash on the table for the appetizers, and said, "Dinner's on me. Consider it the last meal I'm paying for. Enjoy figuring out March rent without my temporary wallet." I walked out to my car, where I had all my essential belongings already packed. By the time I reached my buddy Bryson's place, where I'd be crashing temporarily, my phone showed 47 missed calls from Vanessa, 23 from Fiona, and even 3 from Vincent. Bryson was waiting with beers and zero judgment. "So, temporary husband, huh?" I clinked bottles with him and finally let myself smile. "Not anymore, man. Not anymore. Tomorrow I meet with the lawyer to finalize everything. But tonight, I'm sleeping better than I have in months. Final update. So, 6 months after that dinner from hell. And I'm still finding it hard to believe how everything went down. The look on Vanessa's face when I played that recording in the middle of Carmine's, her favorite restaurant, BTW. Priceless. Worth every penny of that $200 dinner I knew I'd never get back. The fallout was exactly what you'd expect, but somehow worse. My phone literally didn't stop buzzing for 3 days straight. Vanessa, Fiona, even Vincent, LOL, all desperately trying to backpedal. I just let them all go to voicemail while Bryson and I worked our way through a case of beer and the entire Fast and Furious franchise. Sometimes therapy is just Dom Toretto talking about family while your actual family implodes, you know? The divorce proceedings were surprisingly smooth. Turns out, when you have actual recordings of your wife saying, I'm just using him until I can get his money, and her mom cackling like a Disney villain. Judges tend to see things your way. My lawyer friend Charles was a freaking beast in that courtroom, worth every penny of the beer I've bought him since college. The best part? Remember that business investment Vanessa was so excited about, the one where I was finally supporting her dreams? Yeah, the paperwork she signed without reading, classic Vanessa, actually contained clauses protecting all my assets. Charles helped me word it, so technically she agreed that all the money she thought was ours was legally recognized as mine alone, since I was the sole earner. Not going to lie, there were moments I felt a little bad. For like maybe 30 seconds. Then I'd remember her voice saying, temporary husband, and suddenly I was good. The community fallout was weird. Our friend group basically split like the Red Sea. Most of the guys reached out with some variation of, bro, that's rough texts. The married ones seemed especially freaked out, like they were mentally auditing their own relationships. Some of our couple friends ghosted me completely. Guess they bought whatever story Vanessa was selling. But then there were the surprise supports. Like Ruby from my old IT job, who I hadn't talked to in years. She just showed up at my new apartment with pizza and said, heard you had a garbage wife? Want to talk about it? We didn't even talk that much. Just watched bad reality TV, and it was exactly what I needed. Vanessa and Fiona got evicted from our old place 3 months after everything went down. Apparently starting a business with no actual business plan doesn't pay the rent. Who knew? Last I heard from our mutual friend Taylor, they're sharing a 2-bedroom apartment on the sketchy side of town, and Vanessa's working the returns desk at Nordstrom. Fiona keeps posting passive-aggressive Facebook statuses about men who can't handle strong women. Which, sure. Meanwhile, I got that promotion I was gunning for last year, moved into a smaller but way nicer apartment downtown. Started going to the gym again, still hate it, but my back doesn't hurt anymore, so progress. Reconnected with old friends who Vanessa always thought were beneath us. Whatever. Then yesterday, the weird thing happened. I was grabbing coffee at that place near the park. You know, the one with the barista who always misspells names in increasingly creative ways. Mine was Dustin this time, so closer. Anyway, I'm waiting for my order when someone taps my shoulder. It's Vanessa. Hair not as highlighted, clothes not as fancy, but still her. She does this awkward laugh thing and says we should catch up sometime. That she's been doing a lot of thinking, that maybe we rushed things with the divorce. I just stared at her for a second. She had that same look she used to get when she wanted me to buy her something expensive. Head tilted just slightly, eyes wide, that practiced vulnerability. And in that moment, I realized I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even annoyance, just nothing. I told her I was late for something, grabbed my coffee, and walked out. Didn't look back, didn't speed up, didn't slow down, just walked at my normal pace to my normal life. That is so much better without her in it. My phone's been blowing up again since then. Her number, but also random unknown ones. Probably borrowing friends. I haven't answered a single one. Some days I still catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, like this whole thing has been too. I don't know. Clean. But then I remember all those months of careful planning, of swallowing my pride, of playing the long game. Justice isn't always loud and dramatic like in the movies. Sometimes it's just quietly moving on and building something better while karma does its thing in the background. So that's where I am now. Single, solvent, and surprisingly okay with both. Ruby and I hang out like 3 times a week now, not dating before anyone asks, though her Netflix recommendations are suspiciously good. Bryson's trying to get me into rock climbing, which is a whole thing I'm not sure about. And sometimes when I'm just chilling on my couch, scrolling through TikTok and laughing at dumb videos, I realize I've gone hours, sometimes days,